name is Plagueface, and Jim asked me to come over here so that I could introduce James Godwin for his interview about his show, Lunatic Cunning. I'm a little nervous, though, and I get a little scared sometimes in front of a camera, and I'll try not to get upset, but I'll be fine. I'll be just fine. So, without further ado, here comes James Godwin. Yay! Hey!
Hey. I moved to New York in 1988, and I had just graduated from art school, and I wanted to have a job before I moved to New York, and I ended up getting a job as an artist assistant painting paintings for an artist named Mark Kostabi. And so I worked pretty much, 8 hours a day painting oil paintings for someone who would then sign his name to them and sell them for a great deal of money. It was a great job because I was just painting all day, and it was a job. So that was my day job. And then I was trying to get out more to see performance art because that's what really was my passion. I had started doing it in college, and I had done a lot of theater in high school, and my family's a theater family. So I kind of had these two things going at once, and I chose art school because I got a scholarship, and I really did love, and still do, visual arts. And so I figured I could do both here in New York. So I started looking around. I went to see a few shows, and I saw, well, Tom Murrin, and I saw a couple things at PS 122. And then I read about an open mic at a place called DIXON Place. So I put some stuff together that I had been playing with in college, and I went to DIXON Place and did an open mic. And it was horribly under-rehearsed, and it was a mess, but I had a lot of electrical cords and strange lights and stuff. Hadn't been into puppetry then. I was mostly into masks and ritualized trickster comedy, what would come to be known as like alternative comedy, visual comedy. And also with its roots back into vaudeville and clowning and stuff like that, even though I had no real sturdy training in those traditions, I had a great love for it. And Bill Irwin, too. I was a huge fan of Bill Irwin's Regard of Flight. That would be the show that I wanted to make at the time, but I just, I didn't really have the techniques to do it. So I was doing performance, and Tom Murrin sort of took me under his wing and let me do a lot of he brought me into the Full Moon show. He saw me at DIXON Place, and he was a real supportive guy. We were kind of doing very similar things, working with masks and things with the moon and ritualized behavior and stuff like that. I was sort of deconstructing the whole men's movement, making it really, really absurd and sort of perverse, and then I was making larger masks and strange props, and I had a step ladder that I would climb on top of and wear desk lamps that I stuck into a bra, and I would click them on and off, and I made a mask with big antlers, called it Antler Man, and that was the whole men's movement angle of what I was doing. Then I started, sort of by accident, once you start to externalize the mask and you put it outside of yourself, which I wasn't the first one to do it, plenty of people have done it, that's sort of the thread that became puppets. I wanted to make a staff that my shaman character, who was like a bird, there's the famous painting in Lascaux Cave of the shaman laying down, and there's a bird staff next to him. And I was like, oh, I think I could make like a bird staff, and I wanted the bird to talk. So I had a horrible time just trying to figure out how to get this bird to talk mechanically, so you could do it with your hand, like on a trigger. And I retrofitted one of those lobster claws you get in Maine that's got the sprung claw, and I built the whole thing on top of that, but then it was too heavy, and all of a sudden I was making puppets, and I had no idea how to do the mechanics. And slowly I started teaching myself some tricks. Then I sort of fell into a few jobs here and there where I met people who made puppets, and I learned some of the building techniques. Slowly over the years got more and more involved in television puppetry for children. I did a few TV shows, learned some building techniques from those experiences. I did a few commercials, and as my technique for building got better, I met more and more of this community, people who worked at the Henson Workshop, people who worked at 3 Design, and a lot of other puppet makers for various television shows that were happening. And from there, I sort of sidetracked a little bit in the performance world, and I wanted to build a bigger show, and it became this, well, actually I started the Elementals, and we were a puppet troupe that traveled around in New York City and performed in all the small clubs in the East Village that used to be there. Some are still there. And we would do nightclub acts, and we had several little short pieces. Our motto was "Too short to suck." And we would go and do these little sketches, and sometimes we'd do them in comedy clubs where we were the only people doing puppetry. So we would go and do this piece called Mungo, which was a demon that danced to a James Brown song. And because it was so different, and we would light ourselves on the stage, we'd turn off all the lights in the comedy club, and it was, it was very sort of alluring. So people really got into that. We did a few shows as that group, and then we sort of melded together with a performance band called Cuckoo Handler, And we became this other show called Uncle Jimmy's Dirty Basement, where we just sort of folded all of the material from both groups into one thing. And that was sort of this fever dream about a guy in his basement who wanted to have a kids show, but he wanted to be a rock star at the same time, and he had all these weird adventures with his friends in the band, and with several puppet characters that would happen, and his grandmother came to visit him in spirit form and all sorts of crazy stuff. And it was a full rock puppet musical, I believe. It was the first downtown puppet rock musical. Then, through just fate and time, members of the band moved away. We did a long run at PS 122, and we were just kind of like getting to a place where we were feeling like it could go somewhere and be something. And it just, you know, when you have that many people, and older people like myself, people have kids, people move away, people change their, you know, the through line of their career, and we just kind of lost the thread of that. So after that happened, I just sort of went more into the professional world of television, and I worked on Julie Taymor's movie as a builder and as a designer. I wasn't credited because I quit before they made me join the union, but I did a lot of stuff for Across the Universe. And I quit that to go work on a TV show. And then that took a few years bouncing around, and I helped work sometimes at a place called Puppet Heap that makes puppets. They have a shop in Hoboken. They're a highly talented group of people. From there, I also started teaching at School of Visual Arts. And through teaching and interacting with kids who, you know, I have some of my weakness as a teacher was that I just sort of assumed a certain knowledge that I had, and now it seems that there's, because of the internet and the advent of just an oversaturation of information, it's right there, you don't really need to carry it around in your head. So I found this sort of strange thing happening when I'd be interacting with the students there. A lot of them really very talented, but there seemed to be this sort of ontological disjointed thing that for me and a lot of my people that I would know in the theater world, or people that I came up with, like say Blue Man or something like that, there's all this underpinning of mythology and different ideas swimming around, and would kind of cross-pollinate chaos theory. Blue Man was way into that, I was way into that, and you know, the roots of performance art, Joseph Beuys, all sorts of really deep-seated mythological weird stuff, which I was really into, and I really was seeing how there wasn't really any knowledge of that anymore, except for just what you would find online, which really isn't the same thing. You know, you go to see someone perform, it's vastly different than reading something or seeing an article or even just a video on YouTube. And then through that and being inspired and looking at the TED Talks, people doing basically presentations on subjects that were amazing to me, that was an actual place that would happen, I started to feel like it would be fun to do that with my life experience just as a starting point, and with the mechanics of how puppetry can work as an illusion, in the way that the audience helps complete the illusion by doing it in their own minds. There's no CG involved. They help make the illusion happen by believing and giving you sort of even more than suspension of disbelief. There's this nice a form of puppetry that I really loved, and it kind of started me along, was bunraku in Japan, where the operators are in black and they're visible behind the puppet. Oftentimes the assistant puppeteers, their heads are covered with hoods, but the lead puppeteer, his face is uncovered, and he is so focused and projected into the puppet that you begin to forget that he's even standing there. And I just love the image of the shadows behind the puppet, and this sort of double image that you would get that you could erase as an audience member and sort of participate that way. And I really, really started to explore that more and more. And then also along those lines, I was doing a lot of experimentation with what would be called the occult world, or, you know, various magical systems of thinking. There's a lot of different technologies now. I mean, there's the Golden Dawn, there's the Lima, there's shamanism, there's neurolinguistic programming, there's all kinds of great techniques that people have been doing for a long time, and I sort of dipped my toe in a lot of these different areas to experiment with mostly idea generation, getting a better handle on the process of creativity, what the path is, you know, the pitfalls and the hard times that you hit and the dark parts that you have to have in order to get to the light parts. And this all very interesting sort of interweaving started to happen. And I was kind of on the road to just sort of trying to get a career that was stable, and it's too hard to do puppets live anymore because you have to pack up all your stuff and carry it out and do all this. It's just, it can be difficult. So I really had no intention of coming up with the show, then I did, Ellie Covan here at DIXON Place asked me to do a Funder dinner, and I performed one of my nightclub acts called Rudy, which is sort of this foul-mouthed guy, a plant in a planter, who talks about how he's been taken hostage by a hostile alien race, and he's a specimen in the belly of the spaceship, and basically it's just an excuse to tell dirty jokes. So I did that at the Funder dinner, and it was really fun. And then she asked me to do a show here, and I remember the day thinking that it felt right. You know, I was scared because I knew how hard it was probably going to be getting there, but as fate would have it, I got some funding from the Jim Henson Foundation, and I believe that DIXON Place did as well, so the funds came through. I'm a pretty low-tech guy. I don't have a lot of LCD screens or video. It's not really that expensive, but it does cost money to get the proper people in place to do the things you want to do so it's presentable and looks really pro, even though it's very low-tech. So those things started to fall into place. Jay Ryan agreed to be the lighting designer. Tom Burnett agreed to be the director. He was also a performer and co-creator of Uncle Jimmy's Dirty Basement. Kaylee Clemens came on to be the stage manager and all-around sort of factotum, and Melissa Creighton volunteered to be our showrunner or producer to do all the various tasks, of which there are many, that I'm really not qualified to do. I'm organized in some ways, but in other ways I can fall short. So that was really helpful, and as we started to work as a team, things really started to gel in a nice way. We had our challenges, definitely, coming up with material, finding the right order of things, developing a rhythm, deciding how the presentational aspects mix with the performative aspects. Am I as part of the process? Am I presentational, or am I more me? That sort of stuff is still being modulated in the show, and it's kind of a look into the roots of what makes puppetry magical, and the things that I'm interested in, and how they sort of cross-connect in sort of almost in a non-linear way. But there is very much a narrative that goes through the whole piece, and there's various connecting metaphors and images that come back and forth from the top to the bottom, which really interests me a lot. So now it's up and running here at DIXON Place. It's called Lunatic Cunning. We have 2 more weekends, Fridays and Saturdays, the last of which is April 21st, 2012. So please come down and see it.